All right, everybody, welcome to today's call. Let me just make sure this is working. I better check that. Can you all confirm you can hear me, please? Check, check.
Can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. All right. Welcome to today's call, everybody. It is Friday. You know this is my favorite day of the week because we get to do sales training. It is Friday, May 24th of 2019. This is the TRC, or the Realty Classroom sales training, for all you that are watching online. So I'm excited to do this because we've been making a lot of distinctions in the mastermind group as well as in my own office. And I'm joined always by Autumn, our telemarketer extraordinaire, and Laura, our inside sales administrator, veteran and extraordinaire as well. And so we are consummate students of this whole game ourselves and obsessed with trying to figure it out all the time and make it better. But one of the things I wanted to make sure, just reiterating and sharing, I like to share from the mastermind with everybody that gets a chance to listen in. I wanted to let everybody know that some of the things that get lost in sales in the internet or digital age is that the ultimate sales environment is face-to-face. That's ultimate, right? Because that's your kinesthetic environment, meaning that's where you're physically in the room with people. It's three-dimensional. You can read everybody, and it just becomes much clearer where everybody stands. Whereas if you're on a phone, you don't have that kinesthetic experience, right? It's auditory. Period. Right? So you have this auditory experience, which limits all of this. And so there are different things you should recognize in each of those venues. But I think as salespeople, what I'm really trying to get the point across here today is that don't move furthest away from a kinesthetic experience when you're trying to build a sales pipeline. I think that's the biggest mistake people make. And what I mean by that is everybody's in a hurry to go get these internet leads and start there on the phone and go from there, when the truth is, if you could today, going into this weekend, make a plan that you were going to go in and do an open house like I'm scheduled to do. I mean, we have several of them running simultaneously, and I look forward to the weekends because it allows me that kinesthetic experience, right? That's what I get to do. I get to be live in a house. I get to determine whether somebody is serious about that house, serious about any house, and then introduce what we do. And so when somebody can see you and hear you and converse with you and shake your hand and have you demonstrate live, that's the ultimate experience. In fact, the only reason for marketing, whether it's online, offline direct mail, or telemarketing, it's to try to get face-to-face. Right. Period. That's it. That's how this whole thing works. So I think what happens is if we don't reiterate that obvious to ourselves, people come looking in the digital context for, well, what am I saying to this internet lead on the phone? Like, that's your disposition. And certainly that's fair game in what we all do. I mean, if we can crack the code on getting a really good quality lead off the internet, we're never going to stop doing that. In fact, with 96% or so, whatever the real number is, we know it's a lot of people go to the internet to search, to learn, to begin their process. If you can meet them there correctly in a quality way and help the way that you would in the house, right? I'll leave that like that. If you're showing a buyer a house and you could help them online the same way you would in the house, there's a consistency and there's a demonstration of what it would be like to work with you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what gets lost in sales here, is that people don't understand that the minute I write an ad, it should be consistent with the language I would use if I meet you at the first house on a tour of 4 houses if you're a buyer. Mm-hmm. What I say in that ad, written or digital, is what I should be saying when I arrive at your house. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be some weird disconnect with everybody, that they take it in these pockets where marketing is your sales voice in writing, digitized, whatever you're going to do. And if you use pictures, they're there to depict the same thing, right? So I think we have to see this sales pipeline in its entirety and understand that ultimately the goal is to get face-to-face. Mm-hmm. So you can truly be in an environment where relationship can get built and somebody can trust you and take you up on that offer of service, period. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. Any comments that either one of you want to make about that before I open up the mics here? I just thought that was important to share today.
I can just speak to one thing, because for the vast majority of my career, it was just very much phone oriented, and now I've shifted into a face-to-face.
Sure.
I acknowledge that there definitely is a whole separate skill for the face-to-face, and how really impactful it can be.
Yeah.
Just having that, as you said, kinesthetic, in like tangible moment, to make an impression on people.
Yeah. And also the entirety of the pipeline becomes the big issue too, which we were just talking to Autumn about here today, to see your role in its entirety, to see like, hey, Danny, when you walk into the home, and we talked about, coming with me, and we discovered that before, but walking into a home or on the buy side, either one, to watch the kinesthetic experience that you're part of setting up. Now, let's take sales. I'm never going to pull the punch ever again when I'm training that people shouldn't be leading with listings. You can't sit there and make this excuse that buyers are easier, or I'm just a buyer agent. And I don't buy that stuff. I just think it's dangerous as a business model, and I think people duck it. But the other weird thing is a lot of people in the mastermind have found that that's the right thing, and they get all leveraged in listings, and they say, I don't need the buyers anymore. Not good either, right?
Yeah.
So a balanced business comes from understanding what is the kinesthetic experience at its best with a buyer and seller, meaning when I'm in the field with a buyer, what does it look like when it's going well? When I'm in the field with a seller listing that property, what does it look like when it's going well? And that can tell you a lot about avatar or ideal client. Who's listening? Who has been set for sure, right? I'm getting a for sure here, definitely from Laura, and Autumn's now getting that too. If I arrive in that kinesthetic experience cold, it's always the most difficult. So the irony is, imagine skimming a Zillow lead offline, running out to see them. That's probably one of the most difficult kinesthetic or in the field moments there is, because there's no history with you.
For sure.
There's zero context other than you are the slave to a Zillow call and you ran down there. And I'd say that tongue in cheek. Of course, I think it's fun. And you can, in fact, I think it's wonderful. If somebody gives you a real live conversation in the field and you can go show a property and then introduce yourself, that's a buyer presentation in a modern digital context, period, no matter how you get there. But in the best world, being able to set that relationship up and build it over time so that you arrive at that moment better. So when I arrive into some of these conversations that you've set up in the home, I'm arriving where somebody's listening. Hey, Autumn was really nice. She was really helpful. Hey, I talked to Laura. She was this or that. The one point I wanted to go back to, again, before we go role play here and listen to a live call that you just did, I wanted to go back to what you're learning about completion of the sales pipeline, which means what? When you get a listing, being able to make sure you get to the next side of getting it into the closing department.
The most important.
Most important part. So I think a lot of this sales conversation starts with getting people to do business with you, but it doesn't focus enough on finally turning it and getting it into the closing department, but especially in the listing side, especially as we hit a market now. Some markets, as we've discovered, are just so good blue collar bread and butter, like Albuquerque, New Mexico with Tony. It's just going to stay tight until something really affects it. But others like ours, you don't have to be on Cape Cod. You don't have to be here. You don't have to buy a second house in Cape Cod. So it can be a very different experience. And that requires kinesthetic experience with your own clients.
Numerous times.
Get in the car, go meet with them physically, and reiterate what it is we're doing. Because remember you said today, don't these people understand everything that you guys do for them? The answer is no.
Not even close.
Not even close. They couldn't even begin to guess at how complicated a real estate transaction is behind the scenes and what a realtor actually does to help somebody.
Even in the beginning.
So, well, especially in the beginning.
Right away.
Especially in the beginning. There's a lot to do to get somebody organized, pre-qualified on the buy side, upload a listing, and all the details that go coordinating that. Yeah, they're both sighing over here, right? So, but I think the point I want to make is really, it's our burden to express that in doses along the entirety of the pipeline, right? So from the beginning, it's the patience to say, what is your expectation? You're asking me about commission right out of the box. What's your expectation of what you're buying?
Right.
I get it.
I love that.
Right? What's your expectation of what you're buying?
Right.
Because not everybody does do by the way, they're both writing that down. What is your expectation of what you're buying for services, right? Because that's where a lot of you are getting frustrated in the context of sales. And you're saying, well, don't they get it? No. Number one, they don't get it. Why should they? This is a massively complex financial transaction that most people make every 7 years or so.
Right.
Okay, so there's no experience for average Joe and Jane in that kind of a transaction. Even though we might do 2 in an afternoon, they don't. So the disparity is so large. We have to stop getting frustrated as salespeople. We have to stop, assuming they know anything. I don't care how savvy they are at what they do. They're rocket scientists. They're surgeons. It doesn't matter to me. They know nothing about the complexity of a real estate transaction.
Really don't.
So it is up to us to ask them, what do you know about a transaction? You said you've sold. Great. So what are your expectations of what you're buying? Given your experiences, what are your expectations? Because maybe we're not a fit, right? Maybe we're not. Maybe if you expect that you are so involved in the process or you know it better than we do, then maybe we're not right for you. And so instead of getting frustrated, it's like really engaging in authentic conversation. All right, let's roll off of that. I just wanted to share all that because that was our behind the scenes, and I think it was really important stuff we talked about. I am going to everybody out. Let me open the mics, make sure we're good and live here. We good? Everybody hearing me? Any comments on that so far?
We're here, Danny Griffin.
Hey, buddy boy, Arizona, send us some Arizona sunshine. Still gray here on Cape Cod.
Snowed out here, shoveling sunshine.
Yeah. So,
Katie says it's cold here today at 85.
Yeah, 85. Yeah, Katie. Katie, I'm going to make you move. Hey, Grant, take her back to Michigan where you're from and let her sit up there by the water.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
Wind chills of 30.
Grant, any comments about that? Any thoughts about that before we roll into something?
We just tuned in.
Okay, awesome.
We missed it.
All right, I'm going to roll into a live call that Autumn did today. And because I asked her for some calls. So I want to listen to one live randomly. We'll just listen to it. We won't even I have no assumptions about this. I don't even know what the context is. She said, here's a good one to listen to. So we will do so and see where it goes. And we'll talk about it because these are live calls to expireds, FSBOs, probates. I mean, that's all we really have her working on at the moment. And so it's a random batch of stuff. Don't tell me anything about it yet. Resist the urge, right? And then we're going to go into it, right? By the way, that note that you just saw on a real live sale, I talked to Ellen 10 minutes ago. They're looking for a rental agreement versus use and occupancy. No big deal. I sent it to them. Okay. All right. Here we go. Sorry. Live sales during the call. All right.
Communication's huge.
Yep. Here we go.
Oh, hi, Mr. McGuire. Yes. Hi, this is Autumn calling you. I am with Griffin Realty Group over in Osterville. Just a really quick call. I looked at the house you have on Harper's Hollow, and it's really gorgeous, and it's off market. And I wanted to send you some comparative homes that sold during that time period, as well as a plan to sell that house when you put it back up on the market. May I do that?
Sure. You can send it.
Okay. And will I be sending it to 4 Harper's Hollow? Are you there?
I'm standing right in its kitchen.
Oh, okay. I'm going to send it right over then. Also, if you had to say one reason why you think that house didn't sell, what would it be?
I backed out of it because I was in the middle of changing jobs.
Right.
And I was moving from to a 1099 relationship with a group I was in. And I really, I was quite honest with the banking folks, and they didn't like that idea. So they said, look, you got to wait another year till you get a 1090, so, you have earnings in this new role and to secure the financing. So that's what happened.
Okay, all right. So let's get some comps into your hands. It might give you some brainstorms. I think you'll be successful next time. The price looks very good to me. And like I say, we were kind of dumbfounded because we're like, the house is beautiful, it's well appointed, and it's not poorly priced. So we kind of couldn't figure it out, but we want to throw our hat in the ring with you. I'll call you. I'm the concierge here. I'm not an agent. So I'll buzz you in a couple weeks to make sure you got the package, and then we can take it from there.
Okay, folks.
Okay. You're so welcome. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
You too, bye.
All right, you go first. You tell me what the context of this call was. I have some thoughts about it already, but you tell me, number one, what the context was, okay? And is it an original call? Is this a first call?
No, I've tried to call him before, and it's funny that you're asking because it seems to me that I saw that he hung up on me once before, but then when I was looking for that note, I couldn't find it. It would have to have been when I first started here.
Okay.
And this time, as you can hear, he was very amenable. The context was simply to introduce ourselves. And the reason I said throw our hat in the ring is so that I am letting him know that we're interested in doing business. But the first step was to relax him, let him know that I'm not an agent that's going to call him, or whatever, not like agents are bad things, but you know what I'm saying? Just trying to give him that no pressure. I'm here to serve you. I'm going to put some good information into your hands so that when you do put it back on the market, you'll sell it.
Okay, stop there. How did you know his timing? Because you're making an assumption that he's not ready to go right now. So how did you know that he wasn't ready to go?
Well, because if I remember, it's funny because I was going to look at when he was on the market and then I somehow didn't do that. So I really don't know.
Yeah.
I was poking in the dark.
Yeah. And I hear that in this call. So that's what I would say is one of the dangers of sitting down to a dialer. And I've always said this and I've coached this, is that when you sit down to the dialer is built for speed, right? So you're looking to go at it quickly.
Yeah.
And it breaks the formulaic approach. And so, those repeated behaviors of a system, you and I were talking about this, Laura, this morning, that it's that consistency of a rhythm, of a routine, that you see how quickly that got conversational. It's effective, but I'm sitting here sort of scratching my head saying, where are all the questions about his timing? Where are all the questions about?
He did give a clue about timing, not that it was openly asked, but he said that he needed a year under his belt because he's now 1099.
Okay, but we never talked about it. Why didn't we talk about it? So in other words, what do you mean? What bank? See, I have to now sit here and listen to this call and make a total assumption as to what I don't know. So the notes here are just that would be, I had this, and somebody brought this up, and I want to say it was Doug, brought this up before, and I thought it was fair. What is the purpose of this call? We just started the call by saying it's to get a kinesthetic experience, meaning what? In this case, it's a listing. Get me into this guy's house to discuss the situation. So all we did was get a yes to send a marketing package. And what I want to be careful of is that we're not overly sensitive. I'm the concierge. I'm not pushing. Well, what if he wanted to be?
Yeah, and he put the house on in July, and it expired in December of last year. But then the DOM is 11 days, so I don't get it.
Maybe it came up.
Well, I think Danny.
Yeah, Gail, go ahead.
Well, it's hard to get conversations, first of all, for me at least. So when I am on that phone, I want to be able to go to the next level. I'm going to bring the package, but I do need to find out timing and motivation, and get the appointment if that's necessary. Yeah. Because let's say, without knowing that, we're assuming things, and then that isn't good. And she's going to wait a week before she's going to contact him again. Yeah. Well, things go out, and a week's a long time, and I just think that everything needs to be tightened up a little bit. Yeah. You get on the phone, and you're lucky that you can talk to somebody. For me, like 2 people a day, and I'm dialing a lot. And so I have to make that call really significant.
Agreed.
And I've got to find out their timing and motivation. And could I come by? I mean, that's really what the call is about. Yes, I want to send out the package, and he's going to get it. And he's going to love it. But the marketing doesn't always sell the property. It's the call that does.
Yeah.
So I have to remember that who I am as the telemarketer, who I am as the caller. I cannot just think that the marketing is going to be enough. And it rarely is.
Well,
they like to have that package, but
yeah, it's not enough.
Yeah.
My experience is it's absolutely not enough. What it is a support to getting in. This is a good theme here today. Yeah. You got to get in a house with a buyer and a seller, or you're not going to be successful in this business. period. Put that up on the wall somewhere. We used to have it, Gail, way back in the day when we first started running the group. In my office, Charlene, Davies, and myself, I had everybody put something at their desk that said book the appointment, just so they wouldn't forget that if it was there, to book the appointment. Because to me, it's like there's some weird thought process that got everybody caught up that an appointment was a bad thing. So here's what I say. Unless you're all telling me that you are extremely busy for 40 hours a week, that you're on the road showing properties to motivated buyers, or you're in your listings trying to actively sell them, if you're not doing that all week long, then there's always opportunity to go meet somebody, even if it's an initial meeting. So this kind of weird place where, people say, well, he wasn't ready to meet. Well, what did you do all day today? Like, would you have a cup of coffee with somebody who was thinking about buying inside the next 6 months? You're dang right. I'd go out there this afternoon and buy somebody a cup of coffee in a nanosecond that had some kind of timing inside of 12 months. Right. I've gone out where Laura's put me out with some folks in the past where we were coaching a gal over 12 months. And thank God we did it that way, because when the poop hit the fan and a deal fell apart, she was questioning us. But the relationship was so deep from meeting with her kinesthetically, she didn't go anywhere. And we got it done a couple weeks later, right? So I think it's extremely important to understand the content is only there in a telemarketing way, and when it gets delivered, to support the validity of who you are in that moment. That's it, period. Yeah. It is a glorified business card that people say, if people are smart and they are our avatar, they want that. And we get excited that they want that. But we're bragging in our office too much about number of packages sent. It's a wrong thought process. It's wonderful. It's a milestone and it's an indicator. But what happens very quickly is you forget the real goal. The real goal is to book.
You have to have a sense of urgency when you're on that phone. I mean, Autumn does great. I'm not saying, I'm just talking about this one call. Yeah. I can get stuck doing that. I tried that with this one guy. And then I thought, why did I even say that? Why didn't I just go into, timing and motivation? But I tried that and it didn't feel right for me. Hold on. This package is being sent out.
Gail, hold on. Gail, you got something here. Gail, hold on. You got something very important you said, and I don't want to forget it, okay? You referenced urgency the way I understood you to say it a couple minutes before that. If you're going to sit down in a 2-hour block, which we are suggesting to all of you as a minimum for your telemarketing experience, okay? If you're going to sit down and you're going to discipline yourself to try to find a couple of conversations in 2 hours, you need to have a sense of urgency yourself.
Right.
About your ability to flip those two conversations to the most substantial relationship you can establish in that moment. That urgency is what she's talking about, right? So she's got limited time. She's hunting whales, right? As we just talked about, you grew up in Palo Alto, right? So she's hunting whales. Right. So the ability to get people on the phone, and in this digital age, fewer people are picking up the phone. So when you get that, there's the urgency goes up. I don't want people nervous, but I do want that sense of urgency that says, how deep can I make this relationship in this 2-minute phone conversation? And so he never rushed you off the phone. You rushed yourself.
No.
He never did.
Yeah.
He never cut you short. No. He wanted to talk.
Totally
he wanted to talk. And you lost curiosity about, well, what do you mean the bank told you that? Well, what do you mean? He gave you some delicious nuggets that said, come into this relationship with me. Ask me more. Well, I withdrew. What do you mean you withdrew? You withdrew the listing, or you had an offer? What do you mean?
Well, you know what, Doug was right. What's the purpose of the call? And I think we did. Well, you did, we did, whoever did, the group did, make a thing about packages. And for Autumn, she was doing what she thought was, I'm sure, that's all that she needed to do. But I think that we have to remember that getting somebody on the phone is always difficult. And now, was she going to be able to get him on the phone next time? It was like 3 or 4 times.
Maybe not.
But it's good that we talk about this, because it just churns everything up again to what we really are supposed to be doing. We look at the small picture, and then we look at the big picture. And it's really important to look at that big picture. But the small picture is, once you got them on the phone, now you got to go. You got to, you really have to make that happen. And that urgency needs to be there. Whenever I got somebody on the phone, I'm just like so freaking excited. I can't stand it. But I make sure that I have my list of questions in front of me. How long have I been doing this? A long time, right, Danny? And I still, because I know when I get excited or whatever, I'm going to lose my train of thought sometimes. It's just what happens. I have patterns and blind spots.
Gail?
And I know that about my... Yeah?
Gail, let me express this for a second. I think this is probably one of the most important moments we've had in a sales training call in a long time.
I do too.
Here's why. What I'm recognizing ever since I got tuned into this story brand thing, and he brought in the primitive brain conversation. Your primitive brain is designed to survive. So when you come to work in this 2-hour block, 5-hour block, whatever it is, you're trying to survive that block in a primitive way. So in other words, we talked about this yesterday, like how primitive we get. The only reason you come to work today is because you put a white bag on there during lunch and you ate, right? And we're disconnected from that. So we forget what this is about, because the primitive brain is doing it, but we're not thinking consciously about it. So we this weird thermostatic thing comes over us where we start going through the motions and we're defaulting to just barely enough. That's what it does. So what happens is, Maxwell,
I do it too.
That's right. We all do. It's called the snapback effect, right?
Right.
So the snapback effect, now I'll give that new context, which I never had before. You're snapping back to barely surviving in a primitive way. That's what your brain is always trying to snap back that. It is going to expend the least amount of energy it can to survive. And not that I would be putting any pressure on the two of you, but you're gonna survive me today. Do you follow me? Like the one thing to survive is he's not gonna flip out, and I'm doing at least a decent job, right? And you have to be cognizant of that. I have to be cognizant of that, because I can say I have the 2 greatest people in the world sitting here pounding away, but what are we accomplishing? How far off did we fall? Because we all snap back. I can snap back as the manager of that process. I can stop listening. One of the greatest things about having to do calls every week for the group is that we are forced into talking about this every week. And so the transparency will plead guilty first. There you go. You heard an example today of the snapback effect. That's what it was. It's good. She hit a milestone. Package goes out. Guy's into it. But you're right, Gail. From a practical standpoint, to thrive, that wasn't trying to thrive. That didn't have urgency and excitement. Oh my gosh, this guy didn't hang up on me.
I was excited, because I don't get excited about stuff.
Yeah.
That's a win situation.
This guy didn't swear at me, right?
Yeah, but see, I don't think like that.
Well, you think you don't think like that.
Yeah, I'm very disconnected.
You think you don't think like that.
I'm disconnected.
But I'm going to make an argument we all can't help but think like that, right? No, but I'm saying that because Gail and I are sitting here pleading guilty first. She'll be the first to tell you she's walked into a $5 million listing, given a listing presentation that stunk because she had the snapback effect, because she didn't follow her system. She didn't stick to her rules of engagement and do what she knows best. I will tell you the same. There are plenty of times when I went in, thought I was having a great conversation, but I wasn't. I wasn't being effective in the context, right?
That's really what it is.
Right? Say again, Gail? It's what?
Yeah. It's not being effective.
Right. So you have to, this is why I made a big deal over the last month about goal setting. And that's why we have these spreadsheets now. Your goal is set. You know what you need to do. And so when you do it, if you don't get the outcome, that's sort of like, Gail, somebody sitting down complaining about not enough business, and yet they haven't booked multiple open houses for this weekend. And they haven't blocked multiple hours for telemarketing. Boo-hoo. Shame on you. right? Because you're not doing the things that it takes. And if you make 2 hours worth of calls, here's what the survival brain says. And Paul Cantu and I went through this a couple weeks back. I love that Paul makes the calls. I love that there was a volume. And I said to him, Paul, stop telling me about the calls, the number. I get it. You're making them. I want to know to whom you're calling. I want to know what they're saying. I want to know where you're putting them next. And I want to know, did you establish any deeper relationship there or not? I'm not interested anymore once I know you're good. Like, so Paul, so Autumn, anybody that picks up the phone and makes a phone call, I am not interested any longer. Don't get me wrong. I'm exaggerating the point, but it's like talking to Laura about, we have X number of listings. We had this conversation 2-3 weeks ago. I said to you, I don't care how many listings we have. I care about who is going to listen to price reduction today. And we put 2 of them under agreement quickly with just that manifestation of the thought process, right? One was hanging around for a while, needed its price reduction. We got it, and it happened. 2 of them did. 2 of them did.
So, Danny, the manager and us, we're not following the system. We have systems set up, whether it's calls, whether it's going to the listing. Remember I told you I watched Bar Rescue on Sunday, where the owner and the manager, and how it just came crystal clear for me about how important it is that we manage what we're doing, and we talked about how we're not the best managers, and this is an indication of, and it's a result of not managing what we're doing. And I don't know, maybe I'm saying it in the right way or wrong way, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it has to do with the manager. Because if I have a system to follow, like I just went on listing, I was really great in terms of following the plan, the 7-point strategic plan. I ended up at closing, and then we got, and we got into some other discussion. But I really did really well. And usually I don't, but I thought about it before I went in. Maybe the same way with the dialer. The minute you start dialing, you've got to just, get yourself in prime position, prime mindset, and then just go for it. And the dialer, so much I don't care, is when they finally answer the phone, then I just have to be right in that prime way, whatever that is. The mindset's got to be there. The system is there. I just have to follow it. I just got to be the manager of the system.
But I could make an argument here. Lee, hang on one second. I can make an argument here that one of the things we all better put up on the board in front of us where we make phone calls, or your telemarketer does, is beware the primitive brain. Beware the primitive brain. Beware the snapback effect, because it's only going to go to that thermostat that says survive. That's all it's going to do. Survive the day. Oh, it's a crappy day. But if I just go in there and make the dials, Danny won't be pissed off, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and again, I'm saying it openly to my own team that this is the way I believe we hurt. This is the way I believe we have these flat spots in our business. And look, if we're all going to make a collective effort to come here and we're going to spend our lives here, why not try to thrive regardless of our personal circumstances in that day? And you can define what thrive means. Thrive means booking quality appointments with buyers and sellers every single time. That's thriving, right? And if you can set that goal to do that, then that's what you're pushing for. And then your standard, Tony Robbins talks about this all the time, Gail, which you'll appreciate because you're a big Tony fan.
Change your standard.
You got it. Change your
must be your should.
Yeah. So
your should be your must.
Yeah. Well, and don't let the primitive survival brain be your standard. And you have to even be aware that that's even your standard, which most in Autumn even said, well, I don't think, yes, you do. We do. Well, you know what? We do as human beings. None of us can.
I am not in touch with it anymore. Because if I think about it, I'm going to freak out.
You got it. Exactly right. See?
So I've learned to not.
But now you have to say, focus on thrive. And thrive equals quality appointments. Thrive equals closings. Right? Moving people from listing to the closing department, right? That's what thriving means. You have to redefine it, put it in your face so that you don't walk out satisfied in a primitive way. I survived the day today. It's deadly. And it's the root cause of that snapback effect. Go ahead, Lee. You had something to add there, bud?
I was just going to add in, I don't know if you remember, I was telling you about, I was actually in the office and Jackie was making calls and she was having a rough morning, and then she actually got someone that said yes, and she was so shocked and caught off guard that she was like, her mind went to mush. So I said, what new did you learn from the call? What did you learn? You made an appointment, but what do we know new? So, I think part of the process too is that seller information sheet and the buyer information sheet is a good thing to have in front of you when you're making calls, so that if you get off the track, you can look down and ask a question of information that you need or you want to get to clear the timing and motivation.
For sure. Lee, I thought about that buyer intake form, which needs a big time revisit. Because one of the things that we recognized in the first 8 weeks of being able to have Autumn here and getting back to our full core team build out, Lee, was the quality of the questions that were being asked when somebody did say yes. And they did listen. Because again, the ultimate is
we all belly laughed.
Yeah.
We belly laughed after that because I could tell she was just totally shocked.
Right.
And he said, let's do an appointment Friday at 1:00.
Yeah. And see that, the panic. See you tonight. Can we come tonight?
She's like, holy shit, he said yes.
Yes, exactly. And you know what, Lee? It's interesting. And Gail's right. And this is the unique selling proposition for all those that work on a business. This is where everybody quits. Right? This is it. I made those calls. They didn't work for me. Oh, expired, Frisbo's, this thing didn't work for me. Buyer leads didn't work for me. That's what everybody says, because people don't just stay still and persevere. And then when they get it, Lee, remember, of course you remember, when I first started really pressing you, when you were getting all these leads, and I said, Bud, to me, the conversation is the only thing that's going to tell us how we're doing. And if we don't record those and listen to two sides, that's why I threw my own team out there today. I can't wait to hear live conversations because it takes me 30 seconds to go, aha, there's the problem. And it always is simple to fix because there is nothing new about wanting a quality appointment in the field. Nothing.
Sure, of course.
Nothing. It's as old as the hills. Who doesn't want a qualified prospect who becomes a client? No, everybody. So it's almost like you have to restate these basics to get yourself rooted to not cheat.
Right.
So, you cheated, and it was your primitive brain that robbed you because you're like, look at the thin turnout here today. Because it's Memorial Day weekend. Because every primitive brain says, well, I survived it. I've been coaching enough. I'm going to go. I don't get. That's the brain saying, shut down.
Right.
You did enough.
You did it.
There's food in the refrigerator. Right. Let's go. And then when you set it there.
Another thing is when we succeed, we celebrate. When we don't, we ponder. So it's those two opposites.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay, now I can celebrate. I just did this. And I do that too. And I'm trying to struggle through that pattern of, I think it's laziness myself.
Well,
I
Gail,
myself to do some other stuff that makes it look like I'm productive. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I can feel it, and I know the difference. Most people do if they know themselves.
Gail, dials.
And it's just.
Yeah. Gail, dials for the sake of dials and then checking the box is exactly that form of laziness and procrastination. That's exactly what it is. In fact, if you want to be a thriver and not a survivor, when you go to do your piece on telemarketing, if you do not have a conversation that converts a prospect, I would, as a thriver, consider it a failed opportunity. Right? Yeah. You failed in that day. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't stop and go on to the next thing, stop and go home, but you can't feel good about that because it did not lead you to the result you needed. See, at every stage in a sales pipeline, there is a result that has to be reached on a regular basis. So if it's marketing, it's leads and contact info. Once you get them and you telemarket to them, then you need prospects created where they're real. They're like, she didn't even ask, are you talking to another agent again? Are you going back on with the same one? right? You know, all those quality questions, qualifying questions that we get, we had an opportunity to ask and we didn't. Let me say this nicely.
Yeah.
It's a failed opportunity, but how
Right.
would you have known? Like, you're sitting
Yeah,
here for
no,
8 weeks, you know what I mean?
I get
But
it.
now that's why, go on.
Well, what I'm thinking is I'm wondering if we should just go for the appointment with me and send them the package with the comps to get ready for the appointment.
For sure, until you prove to yourself it's hazardous to our production.
Well, and the appointment we should always try to get, but if that's why we find out timing and motivation. If he says, I'm not going to sell until next year, well, then there's no reason for the appointment.
Or why not?
That's the reason why we need to ask questions.
Yeah.
Because if he says, yeah, I'm thinking about doing it in the next couple of weeks, yeah, you're in there.
Okay,
Right.
But if it's a year
Gail,
away or whatever,
but
maybe
Gail,
you can do a two-step.
Gail,
Possible, good.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of the
I
question.
think you get over there to
That
meet them.
will-
yeah,
level.
hold on. Grant's trying to butt in, and I'm with him. I know where you're going, Grant. Say it, though. You say it.
Yeah, if they're a year out, I mean, if they're 6 months out, a year out, get in front of them, develop a little rapport, and it gives you a great reason to follow up until that day comes.
Well, it takes it to the next goal, Grant. Is that remember, I've always said this since I started to look at this, all businesses, by the way, like a Henry Ford assembly line. What are we doing here? We're not selling houses. We're manufacturing relationships that happen to be in the context of buying and selling a house, but we're actually manufacturing relationships. Even when it's a repeat past client, the minute they come in, you are refurbishing that relationship in this context. And it requires you to not take the very best people, your repeat clients, for granted. And that you have to 1000% lean in on that moment. You have to. You don't have, any other choice but to do that. And what we keep doing is, this is going to be an easy one, says the survival brain. This is going to be an easy one. This is Jimmy. I've done business with Jimmy before, 2 years ago. Well, Jimmy doesn't remember. Jimmy's not intimately in that place where he felt what he felt. He forgot everything that you all did together.
Right.
It's already gone. It's already lost on him.
Yeah.
So you have to reestablish these relationships along the way. And when they're new, you better not take any of this for granted.
Right.
You have to make sure when you hang up that phone, they understand what's unique about what you're sending, what's unique about your follow-up that's coming. Can I call you on Tuesday? You were almost in a rush to get off the phone. Like, if you listen to it, let's listen to it again with fresh ears, okay? Let's do this one again.
Okay.
We'll go back to this one again, and everybody listen.
Thanks.
Hang on one second. Refresh it.
Well, hi, Mr. McGuire.
Yes.
Hi, this is Autumn calling you. I am with Griffin Realty Group over in Osterville. Just a really quick call. I looked at the house you have on Harper's Hollow, and it's really gorgeous, and it's off market. And I wanted to send you some comparative homes that sold during that time period, as well as a plan to sell that house when you put it back up on the market. May I do that?
Sure. You can send it.
Okay. And will I be sending it to 4 Harper's Hollow? Are you there?
I'm standing right in the kitchen.
Oh, okay. I'm going to send it right over then. Also, if you had to say one reason why you think that house didn't sell, what would it be?
Good question.
I backed out of it because I was in the middle of changing jobs.
Right.
And I was moving from to a 1099 relationship with a group I was in. And I really, I was quite honest with the banking folks, and they didn't like that idea. So they said, look, you got to wait another year so you get a 1090, so, you have earnings in this new role and to secure the financing. So that's what happened.
Okay. All right. So let's get some comps into your hands. It might give you some brainstorms. I think you'll be successful next time. The price looks very good to me.
Okay. So there you go. There's where you, like Jackie, get lost.
Totally.
Totally. It's like you can, it's almost like you're perfect and then you get lost.
Well, what I really was thinking was I was just trying to close up what I had just done and get the comp out, because that's basically what I've been doing, is just getting the comps out.
And this is why we're having this conversation 3-4 times in a row.
Yeah.
Stop.
So
You go for the appointment.
Okay.
Stop. Because
We can do that.
because the content, and again, let me make this very clear.
Okay.
And Doug brought this up, and he was exactly right. And this is what he was saying, and here's an example of it.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment in time, the content was a wonderful open.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to send you, and I said to, just so you know what I said to Autumn earlier, why aren't you mentioning what they want?
Which is the comp.
Pictures
Right.
and details of
Right.
properties like theirs that sold when they were on.
Right.
That's what they want,
Right.
right? They want property information. There's no rocket science to determine a buyer or seller wants property information. So that's what they want,
Right.
okay? You got to mention that that's in
Right.
there.
I
And
used to. I just digressed.
write it down.
Yeah.
Put it in your face.
It
Because
happens.
the beats, for sure.
Yeah.
Survival brain.
Well, yeah, you get good enough in one
And you
area,
know,
and then you
Tammy-
Hang on,
change it.
Gail,
Other
Gail, let me just finish. Hang on. And then you can run with it. Right there, though, you first of all, clean up what I sent you. So
Okay.
explain that to me about what banking folks are you talking about?
See, I got nervous when he said that because I didn't understand what he was saying.
So when you get nervous, do what you taught us is good telemarketing technique and tactic. Slow
Down. Yeah.
your own mind,
Right.
not just the verbiage that's coming out. Slow down and say, and it's
Can you
look at
explain that to me?
yeah.
Is what I would
Say
have liked to have
exactly.
said.
Say it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. See,
Can
this
you
is what.
explain that,
but-
because I really did not know what the heck he was talking about.
And there's our intellectual insecurity
Right.
that we think we're supposed to know everything that they're talking about.
I'm like,
Right.
Lori and Danny.
Right,
Lori
yeah.
and Danny would know what he's talking about, but I don't. I
And-
thought it was like a real estate thing that they. Remember, I asked you, do they have to have so
Even
much
if it
money
was,
in the bank?
even if it was, you've still always used a good default. Well, I'm not a realtor. I'm the concierge desk. So explain that to me. You don't have to oversell that. I think you've been overselling that a little bit too much.
Right.
But I know why. My brother did it when he first got in here too. Everybody was savvy.
it all changes.
Everybody was savvy. But this is for all. Look at that. We have veterans in this group that do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because the heart starts pumping. Like Jackie. Look at Jackie. Jackie's no rookie on the phone.
Yeah.
Jackie's been doing it forever. Guy finally says yes. She says, she can't even talk. Her tongue gets all swollen and you don't know what to say.
Well,
Then
you're happy.
it's even beyond that. It's the survivor says, oh my gosh, is that a deer with a limp? Says the one that needs to eat. Like, and your eyes get all that. And exactly,
It's like catching a fish.
exactly
And
what
it's
you
exciting.
want to happen, that you find your flight. I mean, your fight
I guess.
in you, and you go, there it is. And boom, down you go and off you go.
Yeah, you
The
rush
opposite
deer.
happens.
Yeah, you rush
You-
the deer and it still gets away even with a limp.
You look like this,
Yeah.
right? You'll freeze.
Yeah.
So that's where technique and tactic come to play. When now you just say, all right, Autumn, you did not understand that. Could you repeat? Because he was slow talking anyway.
I know.
So where was the
He
rush?
was like perfect.
Right. So you go back and you say, and by the way, I'm going to tell you to call him again.
Yeah, I was going to do that. I've been like wanting
For-
to call him the whole time.
I'm sure I know
Yeah.
you. Yeah. The lion in you.
Can I just sneak
Yeah.
over there and call him again? and go,
The lion in you is now awakened, and now you go back and you say, I was bothering me. I didn't quite understand what you meant. Maybe there's a way we could help you solve that. Did you mean that when you sold this, you wanted to buy another one and you were having trouble getting the financing? Maybe one of our financial folks could solve that for you.
Maybe that's what it was.
You don't know because you froze
didn't
like.
ask.
What do you mean by the banking
I
folks?
didn't
What
ask.
banking folks? Right. So you just
What you don't ask.
you check the box and you pulled the parachute.
And I
And-
think when you
yep.
do have conversations, like I'm going to be hiring a telemarketer, and I said to her, because we need to talk every day, if there's questions that they ask you, or there's terms that they say to you that you don't understand, I want you to write them down. And this person takes a lot of good notes anyway, but I want to be able to educate the telemarketer as well, so that they're not floundering around. So it would be good if Autumn, if she didn't understand what he was talking about, that would be a good time to write it down and say, hey, what does this mean?
Yeah. For sure.
I mean,
Excellent
because
advice.
it's a complicated process, real estate, as you said, Danny.
Yeah.
But I think writing it down when you get something like that, and then talking to at least somebody, that'll make it clearer for you, Autumn.
Okay. Thank you, Gail.
Yeah. And let me say this too. Let me take this. By the way, Grant or anybody else, any of my mastermind members or team members want to speak up here? I don't want to steamroll this call. I think this is really critical stuff. Anybody else experience something like that or have a question about that? Speak now, please. All my
I kind of froze up.
yeah. Well, I've got all my quiet people, John Parasak, Sonia Butler, Tommy Turner. I've got all my quiet people on today.
You know what's interesting about this call is when Autumn gave her introductory, or she played the call, I looked at Katie, I'm like, this sounds exactly like what we do. And for a brief minute, I thought it was right because it's Autumn. But then as you diagnose that call, I realized, well, shoot, because we do that very soft kind of approach, I call it.
Yeah.
Give them information, we'll call back later and follow up.
Yeah.
We don't dig in for the deeper questions, and it's mandatory.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that it's mandatory, but I think what we're discovering right here on this call is that it will help. It will help at least to ask a few of those questions. Might open up doors to actually step in and get the appointment. This is new to me too, because I haven't been setting the appointment. I've just been sending out packages. But if we're going to go deeper now, I'm ready. I mean, I can set the appointment just as well as I can send the package.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter to me.
Well, Grant, you see what I mean? I'm being dictated to by the consumer. This is no longer theoretical the minute I can have a recording and I can listen to both sides of it. And then I can be extremely empathetic to the human being like Jackie and Autumn who have to do the job. And in that in that moment of grinding away, suddenly there's the, yes, I'm interested. And then there's this real true, look at, we're talking today about an underlying theme that needs to be brought to the forefront. Let's recognize our own humanity. We are going to set the thermostat on survival. It's a natural thing for humans to do, okay? You're going to set it there. So you have to recalibrate it to be at least aware of what thriving is in this business. So thriving is getting more quality appointments and getting face-to-face. Thriving is getting more listings and buyers to buy, right?
So can I just say?
Yeah, hang on one second. So you're going to set it where you set it naturally. But the more you can condition yourself to do the thriving, I think you're recalibrating the thermostat, Grant. You're moving it up where you're living more at that other place because then it becomes habitual. So your survival might be reconditioned, but in the beginning, that's that leap where it's really difficult. And this is that whole new habit thing, as Gail and I were just talking, new standard thing. Your standard for making contact, even if it's only twice in a sitting, cannot be good enough. It cannot be good enough.
Well, I think Grant is asking if it's a one or a two call close.
Yeah, hang on. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was like, because I was, just overhearing what Grant said about how it sounded like what he does, but I just told him, like, that's not how I feel like that's not really how he is on the phone calls. He asks a lot of questions, and even when they say they aren't really ready, he always asks if he can come out and take a look at the home,
Absolutely.
sooner.
Absolutely, yeah. Katie. Absolutely, Grant. Absolutely. I do the same. And I think, look at Grant and I were trained at some point in a weird spot in history that wasn't the right thing to do. BS. That's ridiculous. If you can get in a house kinesthetically, meet somebody and introduce yourself as a professionalism, you don't think you have a major leg up on the competition? I mean, anybody teaching you that that's not a good thing, shoot them between the eyes with a BB gun. Don't kill them. Just put a dent in their forehead. Hold on. Because that is absolutely the worst advice you could ever get unless you are already systematically killing it with quality appointments and a secondary, a two-step hurts you.
We have set up.
Go ahead,
everything we have set up like that with Infusionsoft, just like that's exactly why we have platforms like that, so we can follow up with people long term.
Correct.
But we always want to gain the relationship as early as we can.
And Katie, come on, tell me, like, wouldn't you rather be following up with somebody that he met versus one he didn't?
Oh yeah.
right?
Definitely.
Because it's already personalized. So I absolutely think that. Oh, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, I was
You got to have the information though too.
Well, hold on, Lee. Come on, Lee. What do you mean? Keep coming.
Again, I'm a sound like broken record, but we were on a call one time and you talked about the seller information sheet, and it is critical when you go in. It's nice to have that sheet with those questions answered, so you know how to handle the listing appointment.
For
so
sure.
The more information the telemarketer gathers, the farther along in the process you can move down the road.
And Lee, to your point, if they ask good questions, you as the salesperson in the field might be able to shorten that person's time frame, which is precisely what I was suggesting here. So if she asks better and deeper conversations, and then she reads, all right, this guy wants to get off the phone now. I've gone as far as I could go. It was her decision to get off with very thin soup, right? So if she had gone further, right? If she had gone further and asked more questions and got me in, say, hey, it sounds like it's down the line, but Danny loves to come see these things. Would there be a time he could stop by and maybe he can hand deliver the package, right? And so now he gets in the house.
Not only that, or how about what's your email? We can get that to you today.
Yeah, but Lee, I'm even talking about the goal is getting in the house and saying, look, Autumn tells me that you got stuck with this 1099 thing. Does that mean, like, who are you dealing with in the bank?
Danny, why don't we make a list of this? I know we have the prospecting mind map, but I mean something that can sit there. So
agreed.
Like we have the universal callback script. Do that. Why don't we create something like that?
We have the qualifying questionnaire.
When we train our telemarketers, we're giving them the whole picture. Okay, well, if this happens, then you do this. If that happens, you could do that. I mean, it doesn't have to be a script, but it gives them objectives to be able to talk to them about. I mean, I think it's really important. We're talking about it, but you put it on a piece of paper and have it sit in front of their computer.
100%.
Now they're more knowledgeable, and they'll, when they do have that snapback effect, they can look and go, oh my God. And oftentimes, if I do make a snapback effect, I will call them right back. Usually it's a blind spot I have about asking about email on the seller qualifying questions. And so I call them right back. I don't have a problem with that. And I'll say, I'm sorry, I forgot to get your email, or I didn't ask you how much you thought houses were, whatever.
Right.
I'm okay with doing that as well.
Gail, to this point, let me leave the call with this and wish everybody a happy Memorial Day. Okay. We have an updated seller intake form that exists. Grant, I see you posting up there. We're looking for older versions of our buyer intake form, but y'all have my word. I'm going to work on that, and we will do our best to give you an updated version ASAP, because we need it to, obviously, from this call. And we will make sure both of these things are updated. And those are the forms, Gail, that will stimulate, us to the thrive mode.
Okay.
If you haven't asked these questions, why not? If you had the opportunity, that will be the new standard. Okay.
Right.
So we will do what Tony says, and we will raise the standard beyond the prospecting sheet, which makes a good intro. Once there's conversation, start acting as if you are booking an appointment. That makes sense? So in other words, even if there hasn't been, like Jackie had like this yes, or Katie, you see what I'm saying? There's yes. So what? Act as if you are already taking that intake form for an appointment. So you stick to that formula so that you're almost already set up, right? Now those notes are available, and you say, I had a pretty good conversation, Danny, with this guy. Here are a couple of things he revealed. I said, we could solve that problem in 30 seconds. Or, he's right. He's probably further out. But the more we know, the better off we are. So the seller one is definitely updated. It's on the Teachable site, Gail. Right? The most recent.
But we're talking about when we're talking to sellers on the phone, correct?
Gail,
not the qualifying questions. We got that.
No, Gail. That's the same thing is what I'm saying. Gail. I'm saying it's the same thing, Gail. It's the same thing.
What is the same thing?
That intake form those are the questions.
Hey, Gail, I got you on the phone. Can I get your email? Can I verify
No, that
your
isn't what
cell
I
phone
mean.
number?
I mean what we just had a conversation about before you do the seller qualifying question.
No, it's the same thing because we changed the seller qualifying questions. You're thinking of them as two black and
Oh,
white.
okay, then I didn't see that.
Yeah, you take a look. How about this,
Okay,
Gail?
I missed it.
Gail,
It's been posted
Gail,
on the
it's on Teachable. So go into the Teachable site.
Okay.
It's under what section?
seller plan, I think.
Seller plan.
Seller. I don't know. I'll look.
All right,
I
we'll
don't know
look.
exactly.
We'll look. It's there.
Oh.
Yeah,
so
it's there.
tired.
Yeah, everybody's fried. Happy
find
Memorial
it.
Day weekend. We're on it. Okay, that's it. Enough.
Thank you.
Good work.
You too.
Bravo. See everybody later. Good job.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Danny.
Good job, everybody.